everybody? Welcome to Let's Talk Markets. I'm your host, Pink, along with my co-host, the amazing one and only Dave Lauer.
Hey, Pink, how you doing?
Doing great, doing great. We're having a really great week this week. We are bringing a comment period to a close, and we're counting on some success from those comments being submitted to the SEC, and we're going to get into that this week. One thing that I had noticed was the similarities between Ken Griffin in 2004 and his comments in relation to the order competition rule and all of that. I want to talk about that, how they've kind of switched their position since 2004, but they basically did your work for you. You were pointing that out on Twitter. Like, you didn't even really have to write out the comment letter. They wrote it for you.
I mean, it's pretty funny, and I've made the point a bunch of times over the last, I think, week and a half. But our positions on some of these market structure changes are not sort of on the fringe or anything. It's what the people who are, defending the status quo used to believe. In Ken Griffin's case, that was in 2004, and in Doug Sifu, it was in 2015 and 2016. So,
Wow.
this is these are views that they held, and when you ask yourself what changed, it's very, very simple. They started making money from the practice. They decided, fair enough, if you can't beat them, join them, and they joined them, and they took over the market. And that's great. They made a lot of money. Congratulations. But it doesn't mean it's what's right for markets, and it doesn't mean that when they now argue to maintain the status quo, that they're arguing for what's right for markets. Right? They're arguing for their P&L and their bottom line. And I think that the SEC sees that, and I think we're on some very strong ground. Yeah, I mean, it was so funny. I have frequently quoted another 2004 comment letter from Citadel, and it was the one in which they urged the SEC to ban payment for order flow.
Right.
And that was the one I was aware of, and that was the one that I had previously quoted in our comment letter. And somebody who I was talking to about it, they turned to me and they're like, "But why didn't you quote Ken's comment letter?" And I was like, "What comment letter?" and they were like, "This one."
Yeah.
And I looked at it. I can't even tell you how my jaw dropped when I read this comment that I'd never seen before.
Right.
And I could not believe it, because in the past, I've brought up the other Citadel comment letter to the SEC, for example, and they immediately pushed back because they've obviously, they've gotten this pushback from others, and they said, well, yeah, but when they were talking about payment for order flow there, they were talking about the options market and all this. And I was like, yeah, but fine, it all still applies. Everything is true about equities as well. But it's true. Like, that previous comment letter was about the options market. This one is not. This one, written in the same year, was about specifically the equities market when they were considering Reg NMS. And yeah, I think that these quotes are just stunning, right? Internalization is one of the greatest threats to price discovery in financial markets.
Who said
Ken
that?
Griffin.
If you played trivia today and asked, who do you think said this?
I
Ken Griffin would be the last person on your list to be quoted for saying that. That's incredible.
And later on, he said, the potential long-term impact of internalization is so corrosive to our national market system that the Commission should take every possible step to curtail this business practice. Indeed, the dramatic fall in processing costs in recent years almost completely eviscerates the arguments in favor of internalization.
That's some heavy language.
Right. And he got into detail about how it widens the bid-ask spread. It leads to concentration. It leads to, market makers cherry picking orders and sending only the most toxic ones to the market. Everything we talk about, everything we say, he's not a dumb guy, right? He knew it. Right. He understood it. He said it. He tried to tell the SEC. So, hey, kudos to 2004 Ken Griffin.
Exactly. And here we are 20 years later, there for a while, as a member of the Reddit investment communities, we're kind of uncovering all of these kinds of things. And it sounds like a conspiracy. But then, here you have it written in stone, written in a
From the man
2004
himself.
comment letter that, you haven't always felt this way. This has not always been the public opinion, so to speak, among, market makers and hedge
Yeah.
funds and all that. That's not, it
Yeah,
hasn't
and
always been this way.
it's funny, and because we'll talk about this in a bit, but over the coming months, all sorts of things are going to happen with these rule proposals. At one point, at some point, they're going to be voted on in a final form and adopted, hopefully. And once they are, the market makers are going to sue the SEC to prevent them from being put into place. And the standard they're going to use is a standard called arbitrary and capricious. They're going to say regulators are being arbitrary and capricious. And I'm not a lawyer. We can get into that in another one. We'll bring on Alex, and he can tell you everything
Right.
you need to know about arbitrary and capricious. But one of the things is that the idea that you can just basically say one thing one day and another thing another day, that's arbitrary and capricious. And
Absolutely.
I think when you look at the track record of the market makers, the commission, the SEC is going to have a really strong case to say, I think your guys are the ones being arbitrary and capricious, not us.
Right. And
Right.
it kind of, you can kind of nip it in the bud before they have a chance to respond, to say, before you even say anything, you've already discredited your opinion here by having an entirely different opinion
Yeah.
previously. So
Right.
I think that is important for us to kind of point the arbitrary and capricious finger first,
Yeah, for sure.
at them.
And that's what I think is the idea. We're going to make sure that the media, because the media is covering this so far in a way that tends to be very deferential to the market makers and the brokers. And, we want to make sure the media is aware of these things. We want to make sure regulators are and members of Congress are aware of them. And we want to make sure that, the investing public understands the seriousness of these issues, right? Again, this is not a small issue. Ken Griffin knew it. One of the greatest threats to price discovery in financial markets, and I certainly couldn't agree with him more.
Right. And the stock market is not the economy, but these kinds of things, after they fester for a while and you've got billions and trillions of dollars filtering through this sort of loophole system that Ken Griffin has found to make all of this money, that's not exactly being regulated. That does affect our economy. That affects the value of our dollar. When you start getting into all of this, how much money is being washed through these markets, that eventually starts to affect your everyday quality of life as an average person in this country. So is it something that everyone should care about? They probably don't, but I mean, it ultimately does affect everyone.
Oh,
How,
I think market structure is something everyone should care about, and I think that markets, there are real economic consequences. When companies are not valued correctly, especially when they're undervalued, and the price of the stock doesn't reflect the supply or demand for that stock, that company has to raise money at a cost of capital that's not optimal, and that means that if it's undervalued and it's too expensive to raise capital, they raise less, they hire fewer people, right? It might be small amounts, but at a large scale like this, on a per company basis, it really adds up. To me, that's why the stock market is so important. It is the engine of capitalism, and it is the engine for how companies raise money, value their shares in order to give incentives to their employees, distribute the wealth and distribute the dividends that come from running successful businesses. All this stuff matters, and all of this stuff, directly impacts the real economy. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't think that it really mattered on a day-to-day basis to a lot of people, and that if we had more efficient markets, there would be a good outcomes for the everyday person who can, one, be confident that their investments reflect the value that they should, that two, those investments will grow over time, hopefully in good companies, and that's a wealth generating mechanism, and three, that these companies can raise capital, either primary or follow-on raises, to hire people and expand their businesses, and that's all important for the American economy.
absolutely, because that comes down to whether or not you have a Toys R Us or a Kmart in your
Yeah.
town, or that's we want Toys R Us back. They took it from us.
I do have such fond memories of going there with my grandfather in
But
Philadelphia.
things like that. I mean, it really does come down to that. So I totally agree that this, the efforts of we the investors to get these comment letters in has just been admirable. It's something that's incredible to see unfolding in real time, and getting great exposure. I saw the Jon Stewart show.
Yeah,
The problem with Jon Stewart, they were retweeting it, and just gotten a lot of exposure for this. So I
for
think,
sure.
the goal was how many letters?
Well, we'll see. So, the first when we did it last year, we did a sort of 2-week comment letter campaign on 13F2, which was the short position disclosure rule proposal, and we got over 2,000 comment letters filed there.
Wow.
Um, so far, and we're recording this before the comment period is ended, but it won't come out till after. So I don't have the final numbers, but at this point, we're over 3,600 comment letters
That is
across
incredible.
the 2 comment letters that we've put out there. I think that's well sort of undercounting what we've actually gotten filed, because it takes them time to process and count everything. So, I'm pretty excited. Let's just say that
Absolutely.
we've already blown out the 2,000, and we've made a statement. Just at this number, we've made the statement that we needed to make.
Absolutely.
I
That's
ex-
really the crux of it, is that's
yeah.
the essence of it. And we've joked about, if only we could turn Reddit comments into SEC comments, and it's kind of like watching that happen. Now you're getting into the numbers of, social media engagement, and that's what we wanted to translate, and
I'm so
so
proud. Like I've been talking to people, and I think like over the last week or so, our engagement has been higher than ever, on social media, on our email list, everything. People are keyed in, they're excited, they want to have their voices heard. I think they feel empowered right now, and I'm really proud just of that part of this, that we've been able to help with that. And so whatever the final number is, and I've certainly got some numbers in my head that I'd like to see, but I whatever it is, we've already done what we need to do. We've already given the SEC, I think, the backing that they need to approve these rules, and hopefully to make them better in some of the suggestions that we've made. And I think that this is going to go down as a pretty unique moment in markets, when you
that
when
should
you
be
look back.
celebrated from our side.
For
Totally should be
sure, yeah.
celebrated. And I could go on a whole other tangent about the dangers of the trolls on social media and all of that, but I've just got to say that really rests a lot on you and your persistence and your willingness to push through a lot of the toxicity that does exists on those, different platforms, different social media, to just keep beating that drum and sending that message out and just getting everyone. I think you've really helped clear the fog of confusion in a lot of the communities, by just being a steady drumbeat, a guiding voice saying this is what we need to do, and
Yeah,
so
it's
I just want to thank you for that.
thank you. No, I mean, look, I think people can people can accuse me of whatever they want, and they often do, and that's fine. And I hear it, unfortunately, and it's hard. It tends to be hard to ignore because people are really loud. But I don't let it affect me. I just keep doing what I'm doing. That's it.
Right.
That's all I can do. And I care about this stuff. I've been at it for a long time. I think my actions speak for themselves. So I keep at it because I think it's important. And I would have it's the kind of thing where if none of this had happened, and I don't even know if these proposals would have happened without our involvement, but let's just say that they had, I would be doing the same thing I'm doing. I would have written this comment letter. It's
Right.
it's exactly what I've been working on for a long time now. And I would have kept pushing for this. And I probably wouldn't be pushing on lots of these other issues that the community has opened my eyes to. And so I think there's something to be said for the long term movement that we're trying to build. But I just think that I know a lot of people in the industry. I've learned so much from a lot of people. There are a lot of people who support what we're doing. who, often they feel like they can't speak out publicly. Frankly, there are companies that wouldn't let them publicly support what we're doing. But, I know a lot of people at very high levels in the industry, and, I sanity check what I do, right? I don't want to get this wrong. I feel very
Right.
strongly about that. This isn't in anything with my ego or anything like that. Like, I'm just trying to figure out the right answers for markets. And I talk to people who disagree with me. I talk to people who, run companies that, or are very high levels at companies that might not, that, could stand to lose from some of these rule proposals. And they'll often be very open and honest with me. They'll be like, these are good ideas. We can't support them because they would hurt our company. But,
Right.
these people have been involved in markets for a long time, and, they're intellectually honest, at least. So, I think, and they'll point out when I make mistakes, because, man, do I make plenty of them. That's okay.
But you're open about that, and you're transparent
Sure.
about that. And
What else can you do, right?
even you and I kind of, I mean, we don't have a rocky history, but I questioned a lot, along with a lot of other people, motive and all of that. And you've proven yourself more than enough times to, I mean, heck, I'm on board. And I,
You don't think I'm the controlled opposition or whatever it is,
when
right?
does the control start though? Because you've been on some, you've
How do you
been,
know what that means?
you took the gloves off, and I don't know if there's a control to the opposition. I haven't seen it yet. So
Yeah, apparently the controlled opposition is targeting billions of dollars of revenue. I don't know what they're
I
talking about.
remember way back in the GameStop saga, I was also named controlled opposition, put in place with, or I'm sorry, I think I was on the good side. I was planted by GameStop or some other corporate entity.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't remember who it was supposed to be, but supposedly I'm also just a pawn in all of this.
Yeah, where
So,
everyone's a shell, apparently. Yeah.
but it's whatever gets the exposure, I guess.
Yeah, no,
That
but honestly, like, the community is really what has made the difference in all of this, right? And the community has come together to support what we're doing. We wouldn't be here otherwise. We wouldn't be on this stage and talking to the people we're talking to without this support from the community, without people signing the petition, without people filing these comment letters. We have shown up, and everyone individually has shown up when called upon, and that's why, the SEC engages with us. They saw those 2,000 comment letters on 13F2. So they saw we were for real. We weren't just making numbers up, right? And they're going to
right.
see these comment letters on these new proposals. So, it's more to, I'd much rather be thanking the community than being thanked myself, because this I wouldn't be doing this without any of you and without the support of it. And, I just think it's an amazing thing to see people care about these issues.
Absolutely. And to have watched it grow, I've had a unique perspective of watching it grow,
Yeah,
and
you really
I'm
have.
very proud of everything that we came from. Ken Griffin mayonnaise memes to, here we are. And the sort of crowdsourcing of information and education is that's the essence of what has made this community what it is. And that spirit of education is a big reason why I do agree with the Irvin mission, and why I'm here. And I just think that that community education and that crowdsourcing of information and the cross-referencing that we did has now led to an opportunity for, one of Irvin's big missions is education. And I'm really passionate about that. And I'm so
Yeah, me
proud
too.
that
Yeah.
that's where we are now.
Yeah, likewise, I come from a family of educators, and so, it's something that's been part of my life from the beginning. My grandfather, my mother, and my sister all at one point, at least, teachers in the Philadelphia school district. If not, they all be. My mom and grandfather became superintendents and such. So, um,
Wow.
yeah, and my sister is in charge of math curriculum for all of Philadelphia for early education. So, like
Wow.
that.
You aren't kidding.
No, yeah, no.
The history of
I'm the weird
educators.
one in the family.
Yeah, you're the black sheep, but
They're
but
all
you're still
teachers.
educating, arguably more. You're
Yeah,
educating,
no, they're doing the better work, and they make a lot less money. So,
oh,
it's never made sense to me why a bond trader makes more money than a teacher. But
Absolutely.
that's
Yeah.
me.
That's a
But no,
whole other platform issue.
right, yeah. Those are other things to take on in due time. But
Yeah.
um, I do think that education is something that has been a core value of Irvin and we the investors from the beginning. And I spoke at the public conference, their conference yesterday called Exchange, which was March 29th. And that was one of the questions they asked me. Like, how do you distill these complex concepts down and talk to people and get them excited and interested. And I said, I think so much of it is just talking to people, not talking down to people, just talking, right? Like I,
Right.
I do think on Wall Street you find a lot of condescension and superiority complexes, and that's something that we don't have here. And that's part of what I think is going to be sort of a main focus of ours now over the coming months, because from our perspective, we need to keep learning about all of these issues. We need to keep figuring out what the right answers are and what the solution should be. We need to keep the conversation going, and we've got some big plans over the coming months to make sure that these rule proposals are implemented in the best way possible, but that they're most importantly implemented. That the SEC has the support that it needs, and that people don't just sort of say, "Okay, I've done my job, and now it's over." Right? This is a fight, and this is going to be a fight all year into next year. Frankly, it's probably going to be a fight that gets sort of tangential to the 2024 election in the US. So,
Right.
this is not something that's going away. Anytime a multi-billion-dollar industry is threatened, that industry is going to fight tooth and nail. And so education is going to be a big part of that. Mobilization and action is going to be a big part of that. Staying engaged. Again, like the fact that our engagement is as high as it's ever been is the most inspiring thing to me right now. And if we can keep that energy and keep it going, then we're going to win this fight. And I think, and Alex likes to say this. He likes to show, each step of the way, we have won, right? Like we won with our meeting with the SEC and getting to that stage, and we won when the SEC made these rule proposals, and we're winning the comment letter battle. And now, but that again, it's not over. Every other phase we have to keep winning. And if we let it down, if we let our guard down, if we run out of stamina and energy, the other side is not going to, because for them, they just need to pay people and they've got all
Right.
the money that they need to pay people. And so they're going to keep the heat up.
Right. And all the vested interest in a lot of those people.
Yeah.
So, but that is, like you said, it's been 2.5 years since I've been involved now. And I think the big concern within the communities was, how do we keep momentum going, and how do you stay engaged? And so that's really the key in all of this, is staying engaged. And that's what's next. Is there's always another battle
That's right.
coming up. There's always,
This
it's
is a
one topic
community
after
that
the other.
this is a community that stays engaged, right? I love
Absolutely.
that it's so many gamers that started this, right? It's
Yeah.
perfect. It's just
We
perfect. We don't give up, right? We never,
No,
we
and we're gonna
never.
100% this thing
That's
until
right.
we've beaten
We're
every
not
boss and
intimidated
every
by the
side
final
quest.
boss.
Yeah. And that's, I love it. I gush over the community so much, because I'm so proud to be just one little part of it, and what we've managed to accomplish as a greater community outside of these platforms. Just everyone that's ever submitted a comment, or listened to a Twitter space, or just staying engaged. That's just the most important part.
Yep.
But we've
And
got
look
to
at
keep giving them things to stay engaged with.
yeah.
So
But look at the DRS numbers,
I
right?
know we own 25% of GameStop.
25% of the company directly registered.
Yeah,
That's action. That's stamina. It's amazing. It is an amazing thing to see,
it
for real.
is. And I hope they bring back the paper certificates.
I love that you
I
got
have
one.
mine back here, and that's one of my prized possessions. Sorry, kid. But I that really is, to see that in real time, coming from, people saying this isn't even relevant. Why are we talking about direct registration? To now it being a part of this national conversation,
Yeah.
and conversations with the SEC, making them sort of forcing them to address this topic.
And
That's
to
been a lot
dispel
of
some misconceptions, like I thought the conversation that we had with Chair Gensler on DRS was fascinating, and I love that Paul Kahn joined us for that conversation because his knowledge, his experience is sort of essential to a conversation like that. And I learned a lot. I think the chair learned a bit, and I think that the YDRS group and hopefully the community learned a bit about some things that maybe were off in terms of our understanding of some of the limitations or what can be disclosed or what can't be, and
right.
maybe on the other side of it we raise some issues that hopefully the SEC will think about.
Definitely. And I was so happy to, I mean, fangirling may be the word, because if you're not in this sphere, then you don't understand what a heavy hitting conversation that was. But to see the computer share guy and the SEC guy kind of going at it about DRS, that was amazing. And it was really kind of a turning point to me, because also in your arc in all of this too,
Yeah.
because so many naysayers have said, well, Dave doesn't talk about DRS, so I don't, DRS is all that matters. And I get that, but I mean, we've just uncovered such a greater picture that that can't be the only focus.
Right.
But that's just, I've listened to that several times since then, because I just keep absorbing new information from it, like you said, about companies' limitations on what they can discuss and things like that. So, really awesome conversations that we will continue to have too.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
uh,
I think we've got that seat at the table, and we'll continue to have it. And again, people showing up in the comment file. That's what keeps us at the table. That's what shows them that we're serious and that we're engaged. So, it's just it's. I think this is a great time to be in this area, in this position, working on market structure with an SEC that wants to work with us. And, I think there are going to be ample opportunities for many of the other priorities of the community, over the coming year. And that's a big part of what we'll shift our focus on. We're going to keep payment for order flow and internalization front and center because those rules are going to be shaped over the next couple of months until the final form is proposed. But we're not going to lose track of the FTD DRS issues that people want us to keep focusing on, the focus on increasing transparency and hopefully putting some mechanisms in place for mandatory buy-ins and on the long term. I mean, that's a long-term change. It's going to take many years, but that's the kind of thing that the community wants, and that's the kind of thing that Europe ostensibly is supposed to have, doesn't quite have yet, but did pass. And we're going to try and do the same thing here.
that's amazing. And that's where we're headed, is staying engaged, and through things like this podcast, through Twitter Spaces. You're very active on your Twitter. We're going to be throwing up an Irvin YouTube, um, putting some videos up there, some educational material, and just trying to provide as much content as we can to share far and wide and continue to spread this message. Um, and not to get too political, but as you said, going into the 2024 elections and everything, it's so important to stay engaged, to register to vote,
For
to
sure.
understand all of the mechanisms that make this entire machine work. You have to be plugged into all of them in order for this to really be what it's supposed to be, and
Yeah.
be regulated and enforced like it's supposed to be.
And one thing
So
I'd say, to people, because for this podcast, we're happy to sort of talk about the things that folks are interested in that you want us to talk about. So, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Of course, like and subscribe if you feel so inclined, but definitely, let us know what you think and what you want us to talk about and questions you've got, and we'll do our best to get to them.
for sure, this is for the people and by the people, right? So
That's right. Exactly.
awesome. Well, it's been a great conversation that we've had today. We're kind of running out of time here, but we will be back next week. So thanks for tuning in to Let's Talk Markets. We'll talk
Yep.
to you next week.
Thanks for
Thanks,
listening.
Dave. Bye.
Thanks.